What sounds like fiction but is actually a real historical event? In 1980, Lake Peigneur in Louisiana drained like a bathtub with the plug removed. Oil drillers on a rig in the lake had hit a mine shaft below. The rig, barges, a tugboat and part of a nearby island got sucked into the largest man-made whirlpool ever. It was a salt mine and nobody died. Edgar Allan Poe wrote a novel in 1838 in which 4 shipwrecked survivors, at the point of starvation, choose to resort to cannibalism. So they kill the young cabin boy, Richard Parker, and eat him. In 1884, a ship called the Mignonette sank. 4 crew members survived. At the point of starvation, they killed and ate the youngest of them, Richard Parker. The Soviet scientists starving to death saving the seed bank of Leningrad during Hitler's invasion in the winter of 1941-42 despite it being full of corn, wheat and potatoes. What happened? Wojciech was a bear who fought Nazis in return for cigarettes and beer. He didn't die until 20 years after World War II. My favorite part about that story is that after the war he lived in a zoo. It was common for soldiers from the bear's company to come visit and simply jump into the enclosure to play with him, much to the zookeeper's annoyance. Due to a military standoff that took years, 15 ships became stranded in an inland sea, and over 8 years formed a multinational ship-based society that even included its own currency. President Andrew Jackson's funeral in 1845, his pet parrot had to be removed because it was swearing loudly. Jean de Clisson, 1300 to 1359, was married to a French nobleman who was beheaded for treason by the French king. Enraged, she sold their estate and purchased 3 black warships with red sails, and became a pirate queen of the English Channel who targeted French ships. She became known as the Lioness of Brittany, and in her 13 years of piracy, she would slaughter every member of a ship's crew except for one so that last survivor could go back and tell the French king what had happened. Louis XIX was king of France for 20 minutes. The shortest war ever recorded was around 40 minutes long. During the Salem witch trials, dogs were also accused of witchcraft. 2 dogs were executed because of it. The East German balloon escape. In 1979, 2 families escaped East Germany to West Germany by a homemade hot air balloon. Asterisk edited for redundancy. In 2007, a paraglider got trapped in the updraft of 2 joining thunderstorms and was lifted to an altitude of 33,000 feet. She landed over 3 hours later about 60 kilometers north of her starting position, having survived extreme cold, lightning, and lack of oxygen. A Russian czar had a bomb thrown at him, avoided it, and thought it was a good idea to stay there to look at the damage. Enter second guy with bomb. Assuming you mean Alexander III, Lenin himself watched the execution of his brother in a slightly earlier assassination attempt. Probably that time the US government hooked listening equipment to a cat so it could spy on Russians, only to realize that cats don't follow commands, and then it got hit by a car. During World War I, the German Navy built a ship and painted it to make it look like a British ship called the RMS Carmania in order to infiltrate and destroy British convoys. On the ship's first outing, the first enemy it encountered was the real RMS Carmania, which promptly sunk it. The Carrington Event. In 1859, the Earth was hit by a geomagnetic storm from the Sun. It caused auroras as far south as Rome. Telegraph wires caught fire, and in general it was chaos. If this happened today, it would likely cause massive blackouts for weeks or even months, and cause trillions in damage. The Great Molasses Flood of 1919, a tank filled with 2-meter gallons of molasses burst and sent a tidal wave of molasses through the streets of Boston. 21 people were killed. The Roman Emperor Caligula once declared war against Neptune, god of the ocean. He led his soldiers to a beach and instructed them to stab the water. Would have won too, had he recruited the Sand Guardian. In 1993, a man taught geese to follow his ultralight aircraft glider. They didn't know how to migrate, so he flew all the way to an area where geese generally migrate to with his geese following. Spartan weddings. Basically, young Spartans would train for years in camps, surrounded only by men. So, when the time came for marriage, the women would shave their heads and dress in men's clothing, since the idea of having sex with anyone other than a man weirded out the grooms. Not exactly historical, but a poodle named Kashi, in Caballito, Buenos Aires, fell from 13 floors and fatally hit 75-year-old Marta Espina, killing both instantly. In the course of the events, 46-year-old Edith Sola, who came to see the incident, was fatally hit by a bus. An unidentified man who witnessed Edith's death had an heart attack and also died on his way to the hospital. Harold Holt, the PM of Australia, went for a swim in the ocean in 1967 and was never seen again. Bulgarian swineherd, King Iva Ilo the swineherd, became a king and won a battle against the trained army of the current king of that time. When you read the real John Brown story, from Kansas to Harper's Ferry, it just doesn't seem real. Fundraising, Canada, clandestine fundraising, religion, asking everyone to join, betrayal by friends, martyrdom, etc. John Wilkes Booth was at his execution. In 1985, Philadelphia police bombed a residential neighborhood. The resulting explosion destroyed 2 city blocks, killing 5 children and 6 adults. 9 Italian geologists being charged with manslaughter for not predicting an earthquake. Edit. Alright, good news, I was wrong. They were charged because they didn't properly warn people, not because they didn't predict it.